Um, Hillside Roundup. OG talk this evening. Yeah, you see it. But also, I just wanted to say I hope everybody out there is safe. Everybody's chilling, and my guest is definitely on time. My guest is definitely here, and I'll be bringing him on momentarily. This is class of 1981, in case you guys didn't know. Class of 1981, Hillside Talk, basketball talk, sports talk tonight. We're gonna go with sports talk this evening, and it's going to be a very interesting 30 minutes. Uh, Without further ado, let me bring them on in, and let me see. I'm looking like prom out here. 1 second, let me go send a request for him. Okay, I just sent him the request. He should be coming in any minute now. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, well, what I was going to say was it's going to be an awful lot of uh, guys. We're going to, here we go. He should be coming in any minute now, guys. Going to get a little sports lesson going on here. Yeah, no. I see class of 95 coming in here heavy. Hey, Mr. Lewis.
Hey, Ike,
Ladies
how you
and gentlemen,
doing?
Mr. Gerald Lewis Jr. is with us this evening. So how's it
Yeah,
going on?
most people probably don't even know that's my formal name.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, if you would like to present yourself to the people, you have the floor, sir.
Yeah, how you doing? This is J.J. Lewis, class of 1981, Hillside High School Comets. Um, Certainly, I'm completely honored and humbled to be here. I got the opportunity to see some of the interviews, including the one, I think it was last week with Devin Mumford, and it
Yeah,
just made me say, you know what, I want to be a part of this. So certainly that's
yeah.
the reason I joined.
Oh man, I mean, like I'm honored and blessed to have you on with me, man. Cause you got a little bit of history, and like most of the guys did not spend that history that we were talking about behind the scenes. So I figured, what other platform to do it in the Hillside Roundup?
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's a lot of history, a lot of things that people don't know. Some great players that came certainly before me and after me, and I'm just so thrilled, like I said, to talk about Hillside basketball because people don't realize how great Hillside basketball is, and I didn't realize how great Hillside basketball was until I think it was going into my senior year. I went to five-star basketball camp, which at that time was the premier basketball camp in the country.
Mm.
And I went there and I played against players, man. And I was sitting and I was like, man, this dude's at Central does better than this guy, man. And of course, they would be ranked like high in the rankings and stuff and stuff. And I can remember playing against this guy named Carlos Yates,
Mm.
who went to Oak Hill. He was supposed to be the number one player in the country.
Mm.
And I mean, I destroyed him so much so that one of the coaches came up and was like, "Hey, good game, Carlos." I was like, "I'm not Carlos, man. I'm JJ from Hillside, man."
Wow. So let's dive right into it now. Class of 81. What was that? What was Hillside like in 81? What I'm talking in terms of like the basketball scene, the teams. What was that?
It was interesting because Hillside was one of the smaller schools,
Mm-hmm.
and so you had Linden, you had Plainfield, you had Union, Elizabeth. All these schools were powerhouses, and all of them were Group 4 schools. We were a Group 2 school, so we were smaller than them.
Mm-hmm.
And the parochial schools hadn't even really gotten on the map yet. The best parochial school at that time was probably Union Catholic. St. Pat's had
Really?
just really, yeah, St. Pat's had just scratched the surface. St. Anthony's was just really coming into prominence, but it was the public schools at that time. And so we had a lot of powerhouse schools, Plainfield, but we could play with any of them. And that's what was amazing for a small school. We had this group of talent that we could play with anyone. It didn't matter who it was. I felt, like I said, after coming from five-star basketball camp, I felt that our team could have played with anybody in the country.
Right, right. Yeah, man. See, that's what I'm talking about. You driving the knowledge because back then,
Yeah,
'cause I'm looking as right now because I coach, but well, not
yeah,
right during the pandemic, but I coach
yeah,
and I have the seventh and eighth graders, and like these guys, they move on to schools such as Union Catholic,
Yes.
maybe Benedict's,
Yeah.
if you're that good, St. Anthony's.
Yeah.
And now you got Linden High that's just like they're up there,
Yeah.
and St. Pat's, of course.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm like, wow, they were scratching the surface back then. Wow.
Yeah, and we used to play those schools. We used to play like St. Mary's. I think we
Yeah.
played St. Benedict's my junior and senior years, and
Hmm.
they were good, but not to the level that they are now. And once again, we could play with them and beat them. And Roselle Catholic was not prominent at all.
Yeah. That's another one.
And of course now they're a powerhouse. So really, it was the public schools, in particular Plainfield, Elizabeth, Union, Linden, and Hillside, and even Roselle was good. But we could play with any of them.
That's our rival. Roselle's
Yeah.
definitely.
We could play with any of them. And
Yeah.
so when I look at that, it just shows you how good our team was and how good our players were.
Now, who were your teammates on that team?
Actually, that was an awesome team. It was myself, Iman Muhammad, Eddie Manuel, Leroy Jackson, and really, the guy who does not get the credit that he deserves, and really, in my opinion, was one of the keys to our team was Hank Hall. Hank Hall, pound for pound, was the best rebounder that has probably ever played at Hillside.
Wow.
I mean, he was a beast on the glass. He was like that Dennis Rodman type dude.
Yeah.
That, like, you played against him, you hated him. But if he played for you and played with you, you were like, yo, that's my man. Because I can remember a couple of games where we would go into a game and say at the end of the game, we would have like 40 rebounds and Hank would have like 27 of them, because he was just a beast on the glass.
Now, you mentioned a name. Who was that you just said? I let it slip my mind just that quick. Oh, Leroy Jackson. Is that Lefty Jackson?
No, that's not Lefty Jackson.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
No, and it's funny because Leroy, it was funny when we were in 7th and 8th grade, we were rivals because they went to WOK and we went to GW. And that was when they used to have the old school league. And so we played them 2 years in a row for the championship. And so we really, we were rivals. We couldn't stand each other. And then our freshman year, of course, we ended up playing with each other and just becoming close friends. Even to this day, we're still close. And I see somebody mention Blue Magic and their pops.
Yeah.
And I'm talk about that. Don't forget, you can ask Ike. I talked about that earlier.
Yeah. Mr. Dern with the Blue Magic. Now, before we get into that, what about while you was finishing up your sentence, who's the coach for that team that you was on?
Well, we actually played for Mr. Silver, Joe Silver. And Mr. Silver really, for me, became a father figure because I grew up without a dad, and he was really a father figure for me. But I would never say anything bad about him because he really is part of the reason I'm who I am today. But I really feel like our style should have been different than the style that we played. And when I talk about, I see Damien on here, when you talk about like how we played and how Mr. Dunn kind of really brought us into prominence. Mr. Dunn actually used to live next door to me in Hillside, even though he taught in Elizabeth. And then he took us to Elizabeth, and we played in this league called the School One League. And actually the school now is named after Jerome Dunn. But he took us there, and I'm telling you, we played a different style, and people would be like, yo, that ain't the same Hillside kids, because they're not playing that robotic ball. We would run up and down the floor. We would press. We would do all kinds of stuff. And so he was really the one that kind of introduced us almost to the rest of the county, because they knew about us. But once we went to School One and we did work there as Blue Magic, we just really, that really put us into prominence. As a matter of fact, I told you earlier, the coach at Elizabeth was a man named Ron Kelly. And Ron Kelly saw us in the Summer League game, and he thought we were all from Elizabeth. And so he was like, oh, man, I'm going to be stacked, man. I got all these kids. And then he found out we were from Hillside. He was like, oh, man, Hillside going to be stacked. And they got all of them.
Yeah, I had a couple instances like that. Oh, man. So I know how you felt.
Yeah.
So go ahead and talk about that Blue Magic a little bit more, man.
Oh, let me tell you, Blue Magic was incredible for me. because it was all of the guys from Hillside. Mr. Dunn got us together, and we went over to Elizabeth, and we came in. When we came in as Blue Magic, you know, nobody really knew who we were. They were like, oh, they from Hillside, they this, they that. And we got out there and we just rocked. You know, that's what we did. And Mr. Dunn, we actually were coached, Mr. Dunn brought us over there, but we were coached by a brother named Muhammad Bashir. And Muhammad, one of the ways that Muhammad used to inspire us to play was he would invite all these young ladies to the games.
Ah.
And man, we would go out there and we would show out, man. we would show out. Yeah.
Oh man. I guess that's where that comes from. Central, back in my time in the 90s, when the girls used to come, you pulling out every trick.
And Central too. I mean, really part of the reason and part of the way that I started honing my game was going down to Central, because we used to go to the PAL. And the PAL, we only played half court because a lot of them probably don't remember the old PAL. The old PAL, the course was like 300 yards long. I mean, you couldn't play full court on the old PAL courts. And then finally they renovated it and we started playing full court. But by that time, everybody had started migrating down to Central. And so we would go to Central, and it was not uncommon for, there were a number of good teams. Like there was a Plainfield had a monster crew led by this brother named Kenny Fields. Kenny Fields was probably one of the most exceptional athletes that I ever played against. But once again, being from Hillside and playing the way that we played, I knew he couldn't go right. So I used to D him up, you know? So it was those little things, like people used to be like, yo, how you D Kenny Fields up? And I'd be like, I can't tell you, you know, because I don't want him to find out. But it really, there were two proving grounds. There was Central, when you went down to Central and you played on the big court. And then also when you went to School One. When you went to School One and you played there, I mean, there was no better place to play. That was one of the best summer leagues around for years and years. And it's amazing that those leagues haven't kept going based on, you know, kind of like the youth we have today don't do like we did. Like, it was not uncommon for us to get in our car, drive to Plainfield, and play against the brothers from Plainfield. Get in our car, drive to Union, Linden, Elizabeth, wherever. And then I can remember times where, like, Kenny Fields would come down to Central, and people would be, we ain't have cell phones back then. So they would actually come to my house and be like, yo, Jay, Kenny Fields and them down at Central, man. You got to come down there. And I'd be like, you know, at that time I was dating this young lady in high school. I was like, yo, I got to go. You know, the mission calls. You know, but it was really good. And like I said, and even now I'm still friends with Mr. Dunn, but really he deserves a great deal of credit. But it really would have been great if he could have been our coach. And once again, not to ever say anything bad about Mr. Silver, but our style should have been different, in my opinion.
No, I mean, from what you're telling me, you're absolutely right. But they did name a tournament after Mr. Silver, correct? Oh,
let me tell you something. No, I take nothing away from him as a great man. Really, once again, a father figure for me. But we had some players, in my opinion, that were certainly under-recruited. We had some players that really could have gone anywhere. And once again, I go back to the 5-star basketball camp thing. You know, I ended up going to Wagner College out of Hillside, but I had actually narrowed my choices down to Wagner, Providence, and Virginia Tech. And I really wanted to go to Providence. And, you know, not having it, I wish I had more guidance. I wish I was able to, you know, get somebody that kind of had my ear and said, you know what, this is where you need to go. But, you know, I trusted Mr. Silver, so I ended up going to Wagner. Not that I didn't have a good career there and enjoy it, but I really always sit back and say, I wonder how it would have been if I had gone to Providence as opposed to playing in the Big East.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now, I wanted to ask you, now, was he persuading you, or did he, it's like, nah, you should just go here?
Well, it was interesting because at that time, the coach for Wagner was PJ Carlissimo. PJ Carlissimo was actually the guy that Latrell Sprewell choked.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one of the things he's famous for, you know. And so PJ was a great recruiter. I take nothing away from him. And so PJ really came in, and I told you I was raised by my grandparents. PJ came in and persuaded my grandparents. And that's how I ended up at Wagner, because my grandparents were like, look, that's where you're going,
Yeah.
because my grandparents trusted him. But
Right.
we had so many great players that I felt were under recruited, and I really want to talk a little bit about even before me.
Sure.
I used to pattern my game after a player named Harvey Wooten. Harvey Wooten played in '75.
Hmm.
And it was Harvey Wooten, Vic Wells, Darrell Bowen, all of these guys, Ronnie Hobbs, Dennis Thomas, all guys that I looked up to. And Harvey Wooten was the smoothest big guy you ever saw. He was the first big guy that I ever saw. He was probably about 6'4", 6'5". He could shoot, he could handle, he could do it all. And most importantly for me, he was patient with me, because I was a young kid. And Harvey actually ended up going to Penn State. And so during the summer, he would work out in the George Washington playground. They had hoops out there at that time.
Yeah.
And I knew he would be out there 7 o'clock in the morning. I would be out there 7 o'clock in the morning. And to this day, he still teases me, because he would give me, different pointers, and he would say, okay, you need to learn how to use your left hand. And
Yeah.
so the way he taught me how to do that was, he said, everything you do with your right hand, I want you to do with your left hand. So I can remember sitting at the table and trying to eat with my left hand, and my grandfather's like, boy, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
And I said, Granddad, I'm trying to learn how to use my left hand.
Mm.
And that was really how I developed that particular facet of my game. But Harvey was the one who even took me around sometimes with him as a young kid and be like, yo, man, you ain't going to score, you ain't going to rebound, whatever, but you at least going to be on the court. And
Right.
so I always looked up to Harvey. I always looked up to Vic Wells, Darrell Bowen, all of those guys, Ronnie Hobbs, Dennis, were the people that I wanted to be like. But Harvey, I tried to pattern my game completely after Harvey Wooten.
You know what? And it's funny you say that name, because that name came up, I want to say once or twice already. This is the
Oh,
third time.
Harvey, let me tell you
Yeah.
something. Harvey was the truth. He really was. And he was the first one that really introduced me. He took me out of Hillside, and he took me to places like Green Acres. He took me down to the Hole and
Mm.
places like that. And really, once again, I got an opportunity to play against some really good players and kind of hone my game. And then there was another summer league in Branchbrook Park. And
Yes.
I was actually supposed to play with this team called Surprise. They were out of the projects. And I found out that Harvey and Vic had a team. And so, like, just before the game, I gave them my jersey. I was like, look, I'm going to play with Harvey and Vic, man. Those are my guys. I got to play with my idols. And so,
Yeah.
of course,
Right.
they never let me live that down. But
Mm.
there were so many great players that came through. As a matter of fact, one of the best players, and people sometimes forget about this brother, and Damien's father can tell you about him. There was a brother who played with us named Vincent Jones, was his given name, but we called him Salam. And
Mm.
Salam was part of our front court when we were at George Washington. It was myself, Eddie Manuel, and Vincent Jones. And Vincent would have, in my opinion, would have been one of the best players to ever come out of Hillside. But he decided to take a different path. And it was just odd, because people would say, yo, man, whatever happened to Salam? And we'd be like, we really didn't know. But he truly was a good player, and would have been a great player, because he picked up basketball late. He didn't start playing basketball till he moved to Hillside. And
Mm.
that was in like seventh grade. And he just progressed so quickly that when we were playing Summer League with Blue Magic, man, me and Salam, we would be tearing stuff up.
Yeah.
And I just always prayed. I always think about that. I said, man, I wonder if we had Salam, how things would have turned out differently
Right.
in everything.
Mm. Hey, man, I got to go here right now.
Hmm.
Now, you a seasoned vet right here. So,
Yeah.
I mean, like I told you, I was gonna come with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me explain it to you like this. You're a
Okay.
coach. Team.
Right.
Yeah, you either you played with these guys,
Right.
or you saw them play. They went to Hillside, or they
Hmm.
went to Central, or the PAL.
Yeah.
Give me 5 guys that you're picking off the top to take around the world for $5,000, $5 million.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you who my favorite player is, and certainly I would take Hank Hall anywhere. That's the
Okay.
truth, because you always need somebody that's going to rebound and defend.
Right.
So certainly Henry Hall, Tony Little is my favorite player out of Hillside.
What?
I love Tone, and I got the opportunity to play with him. Of course, I was older than him, but I got a chance to play with him. And he was a super player. And when you talk about being under recruited, he was a guy who was under recruited. Tony had North Carolina, Kentucky, Duke skills and physical ability. So it would be Henry Hall, certainly Tony Little. I always loved, and really this guy doesn't get a lot of credit also, and really, Tat Tucker was a great player.
Yeah.
I didn't see some, and I'll tell you who another player that I truly loved, and I used to, as I got older, I would sneak back to a Hillside game and check out a game. I loved Jamie Mazik.
Oh, yeah.
I love Jamie Mazik. God rest his soul. He was a great player. I thought the world of him. And really, my fifth player would be Eddie Manuel.
Okay.
Eddie Manuel was I think he was a sophomore when he played with us on the varsity. And Eddie Manuel was a super player. He was about 6'6", 6'7", could handle, shoot, block shots, do everything. And I can remember we played his sophomore year. We played Newark Central at Hillside. And they came in and they had a center who ended up going to Wagner with me named Larry Clark. His son played in the pros. Earl Clark played at Rawway.
Oh, wow.
So we played against them, and Eddie just put on a show that night. I mean, he was rejecting anything that came near the rim. And so at halftime, we were leading 30-12. I'll never forget that. And Central decided they weren't going to come out for the second half. And they didn't come out for the second half. They actually went home. They put their stuff on and went home. And, of course, they were like, oh, they're cheating and this and that. Like, nah, we just dominated that night. It was just our night. We were that good. Then we had some great rivalries with Linden. Linden had a crew. As a matter of fact, we played them in the county tournament. And I always say that one of the reasons we ended up losing to Clark in the county tournament. And a lot of people, let me tell you something. A lot of people have heard about Kevin Boyle as a coach.
Yeah.
Kevin Boyle was a hell of a ball player. Kevin Boyle had a handle that was crazy. His handle was crazy. Back then, of course, you could stall, you could hold the ball for as long as you could. And he never missed a free throw. And so they had this amazing team. They really did. But I always said that what happened, we played Linden in the semifinals of the Union County tournament that year. And we beat them in triple overtime. And the game was so exhausting that when we came to school the next day, that the Al Lordi told us to go. He let us go home. He said, man, after that game last night, he said, I know you guys are exhausted. I'm pretty sure if this were 2020, he'd probably get suspended for doing this or something. But he was like, look, Jay, y'all go home, man. He was like, y'all need some rest. And I just think that game took so much out of us that by the time we got to the finals, we were just physically exhausted. But Clark had a good team. I have to give them credit. And it was funny because that year in the county, it was always us, Clark, Linden, and Union Catholic. And then at one point, we ended up finishing number one in the county, even though we didn't win the county tournament. But they were those other three teams were really good. They really were.
So Union Catholic's been around for quite some time because, like I said, some of the coaches that's up there in the administration team, they come to some of our 7th and 8th grade games and they look at who wants to come in and play.
Oh yeah, they're recruiting now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Heavily.
Yeah. And
like this guy, I had a few guys. I can't even say this guy, but I had guys that went to Union Catholic ended up being very successful as well. But what I want to talk to you about while I got time for a minute is this Mr. Tony Little, because Tony Little, his name came up at least 7-8 times too during all these interviews. Yeah. Now he was that good. I never. I heard
let me tell you something. Tony Little was an incredible player, and I loved him as a younger brother. He came up behind me, but I had so much love for him. But I watched this game evolve, And I mean, his game was incredible. One of the things that I used to always say about Tony, I've never seen anyone that could go from the foul line to the basket quicker than he could. Like Tony
Mm.
Little would have the ball at the foul line, and next thing
Mm.
you know, he was dunking it, and you would be like, "Man, how did he do that?" You know. But he was an incredible player. He was probably, if I had to name an all-time favorite player of mine, of course Harvey Wooten's going to be number one because Harvey Wooten was my idol. But Tony, out of the young cats, would be my all-time favorite. As a matter of fact, he played Hillside played Bloomfield in a state playoff game, and Bloomfield had a center named Alo Abdelnaby.
Oh,
Right. Abdelnaby ended up going to Duke.
yeah.
But when I say Tony put it on him, Tony put it on him. I want to say like Tony scored like 18 straight points. And it was one of the most incredible performances that Hillside has probably ever seen. The other thing I'd like to just remember also about that time, I think we were the class of '81. We were the first team, I think, that really made the games a happening. I mean, everybody came to the games, man. It didn't matter. It didn't matter what you did, whether you were on the right side of the law, the left side of the law.
Yeah.
Everybody would put on their best. And the parents, and I can't thank the parents enough for their support. There was a gentleman named Edwin Ross, and his sons ended up playing. They were younger than we were. I don't think he ever missed a game. This young lady, Debbie Jones, her father used to come, Mr. Jones. I mean, it was just an incredible atmosphere, and it was a family atmosphere. My family was always there, and I remember my senior year when I graduated, my mother said, what are we going to do now? You know, because the games were over, you know.
Yeah.
And so I think we were the first team that really made it a happening. There used to be this cheer that they used to say, Big H rocks the house.
Yeah.
We started that. But in reality, we stole that from Central.
Wow.
Because Central came in that game when we blew them out. They were saying Big C rocks the house. And then by the time we finished with them, we were like, no, Big H rocks the house. So, yeah.
But it was actually, I mean, you still it because you came in there, you put the work in, and you know, you take.
Well, it was an interesting time because I say, man, I always tell my son, I have a 15-year-old son, Aaron, and I said to Aaron, I said, I wish they had threes when I played, man, because I would have been lighting it up from three, you know. So we didn't have 3-pointers. No, we didn't have threes. I scored 1,000 points, and we didn't have 3-pointers.
Wow.
Yeah. And then and one play I want to mention, and I ended up finding out that he's my cousin, and he might be the all-time leading scorer in Hillside history, is David Burke. David Burke was, if you get a chance to talk to him, he was another phenomenal player. And then I ended up finding out later on that David was actually my cousin. Yeah. So there was so many good players, and like I said, those were some of the best times ever. You know, you probably know Coach Enda and Jerry Alexander. Yeah, all of them. As a matter of fact, I remember my first home game at Wagner. PJ called me into the office and he said, "Hey man, your Uncle Bob called and he asked for 20 tickets." So I said, "I don't have an Uncle Bob, man." He said, "Bob Ender? That's not your uncle?" I said, Yeah, that's my uncle, man. Yeah, give him the tickets. And so so there were so many great players. Like I said, I would be the one player that didn't go to Hillside that I used to love to play with down in Central was Mike Brennan from Elizabeth. Mike Brennan actually lived right behind Central. And so, but of course, he ended up going to Elizabeth and playing with Luther Wright and Mike Goodson and all those guys and winning the state championship. But he actually was a Hillside guy.
Wow.
Yeah. So he honed his game at Central and then took it to Elizabeth.
Right.
Yeah. So he actually kind of owes us.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's guys that's like that. That live back there. Well, especially during my era.
Yeah.
Live right on the park.
Yeah.
Man, JJ, man, I'm glad you got on here.
Yeah.
Talk, speak what you have to speak. Man, it's an honor, blessing.
Well, the last thing I want to say, I just want to say thank you to your father. your father was one of the inspirations for me as a teacher. And he was a teacher assistant when I was at Hawthorne Avenue School in Newark. And I think I told you that. And he always pushed academics. And
Yeah.
so the one thing that I'm always proud of is the basketball thing didn't work out, but I still have a great life because I did other things. I went and got my degree and things of that nature. So I just want to emphasize that. I can't thank Jerome Dunn enough for what he did, even after, basketball. And once again, Mr. Silver, Coach Enda, everybody. I mean, it was a big family, but I'm telling you, just class of '81, like I said, we didn't win the state championship. I still think we should have, but those memories are just forever in my mind.
Oh man,
And just know that the Hillside guys, once again, can play against anybody. And I told you I learned that, and I sat there and I was like, man, we got guys at Central that eat people up here.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
And it's been like for a long time, man. It's definitely been a very long time.
Yeah.
Oh man, but yeah, JJ, I had to give you your flowers and show you some love this evening,
Thank
man.
you. I
First
appreciate it.
He'll H rocks the house.
I would love to hear you talk to Harvey Wooten.
Hey, you know what? I'm gonna talk to you when we get off of here and see what we can do, try to set that up.
Yeah,
because I know he's like an older gentleman and everything.
He's a good brother, Vic Wells. If you talk to Vic Wells, nobody loves basketball more than Vic Wells. And Vic Wells was a guy who was a physical freak. Vic Wells could jump so high, but back when Vic Wells played, you couldn't dunk, believe it or not. Yeah. And Vic Wells would go up and he would cock it behind his head, and then he'd be like, "Oh man, I can't dunk it. I just got to lay it in." So. But he was another one. He was another guy I really looked up to.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I've been trying to get him since day 2 of this pandemic.
Yeah.
But he's very busy, man. I'm gonna get him though.
Nobody loves the game like Vic. That's the truth.
Oh, I see it. I don't know if you follow up here.
Oh yeah, I do. He truly loves the game.
Yes.
In every sense.
Yeah. Well, JJ, man, I'm gonna get ready to get this going. I had to give you your flowers this evening, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I'm gonna definitely be in touch with you in the next 5 minutes.
Okay, great. All right, I hope to get on here again soon.
Oh, definitely, man. You always got the house. You always
all
got
right,
the keys.
Take care. I appreciate it. Much love to Hillside.
All right.
All right.
All right.